والنعمة لك الملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك الملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك الملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ومن الناس من يجادل في الله بغير علم ويتبع كل شيطان مريد كتب عليه أنه من تولاه فأنه يضله ويهديه إلى عذاب السعير يا أيها الناس إن كنتم في ريب من البعث فإنا خلقناكم من تراب ثم من نطفة ثم من علقة ثم من مضغة مخلقة وغير مخلقة لنبين لكم ونقر في الأرحام ما نشاء إلى أجل مسمى ثم نخرجكم طفلا ثم لتبلغوا أشدكم ومنكم من يتوفى ومنكم من يرد إلى أرذل العمر لكي لا يعلم من بعد علم شيئا وترى الأرض هامدة فإذا أنزلنا عليها الماء اهتزت وربت وأنبتت من كل زوج بهيج ذلك بأن الله هو الحق وأنه يحيي الموتى وأنه على كل شيء قدير وأن الساعة آتية لا ريب فيها وأن الله يبعث من في القبور صدق الله العظيم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. You have just heard verses 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 of Surah Hajj. In verses 2 and 3 of Surah Hajj, Almighty Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala refers to the corrupt beliefs and the wrong ideologies of Nadhr ibn Haris. Nadhr ibn Haris was an arch enemy of Islam, like Abu Jahl. He did not believe in life after death, in resurrection. He believed that the angels, they are the daughters of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, And he also used to propagate and tell people that the Quran is nothing but a storytelling book. So Almighty Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala condemns the corrupt beliefs of Nadar ibn Haris. And Allah says, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يُجَادِلُ فِي اللَّهِ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. That among people, there is that person who disputes regarding Allah without any knowledge. وَيَتَّبِعُ كُلَّ شَيْطَانٍ مَرِيدٍ. And he follows every shaitan that is rebellious. كُتِبَ عَلَيْهِ أَنَّهُ مَنْ تَوَلَّى فَأَنَّهُ يُضِلُّهُ وَيَهْدِيهِ إِلَىٰ عَذَابِ السَّعِيرِ. It is decreed upon such a person that whosoever befriends that person, referring to Nadar ibn Haris, whoever stays in his company, in his companionship, and befriends him, then Nadar ibn Haris will mislead that person and take that person towards the fire, towards the punishment of the fire of hell. From this verse we understand the importance and the implications of companionship and friendship. It all depends how a person's friend is, the person will act according to that. Every human being by nature is stealthy. He gets affected with the environment that is around him. If the person stays in a company of a pious person, he will become pious, he will think pious, he will do the correct and the right things. But if the person stays in a company of the wrong person, then the thinking, the practice of his friend will have an effect on him. And that is why Almighty Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala tells us in the Quran Kareem, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullah wa kunu ma'as sadiqeen. O you who believe, fear Allah. And this fear for Allah can come into a person by staying in the company of the pious people. In one hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, Al-mar'u ala dini khalili, falyanzur man yukhalil. A person is on a part of his friend. He is on a part of his companion. So, be very careful who you befriend and whose company you stay in. So Almighty Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala speaks about Nadar ibn Haris and condemns his attitude, his thinking, his philosophy and his ideology. In verses 5 and 6 and 7, Almighty Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala tells us about life after death, resurrection, and standing in the court of Almighty Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. And He gives us two thought-provoking examples of the concept of life after death. Almighty Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala speaks about the formation of a person in the womb of his mother and mentions 8 phases of life. The first phase being the person being created from sand. Second, from a drop of sperm. Third, from congealed blood. Fourth, from a piece of meat, whether it is shaped or unshaped. And then the fifth phase being the development in the womb of the mother. The sixth phase, the person coming out as a baby. The seventh phase, the youth. And the eighth phase is old age. Almighty Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala speaks about the 8 phases of life. And Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala brings to our attention that the person was non-existent. He was nothing. A non-existent matter. Almighty Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala granted him existence from non-existent. And from one phase to another phase, to the third phase, to the fourth phase. And every time a person looks at the phase in front of him, it was not existent, Allah brought him into that phase. And then the person looked at the phase behind him, he realizes that it was there, it is no more. The same goes with the concept of life after death. The life in the hereafter is not in front of us now, now we will go there. But when we sit back and we look back, then we will realize that Almighty Allah Ta'ala has taken us from one phase to another phase. Similarly, Almighty Allah Ta'ala reminds us of the concept of life after death. So Allah Ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhan nas, in kuntum fi raybin min al-ba'th. O people, if you are in doubt about life after death, about resurrection, then think, sit back, reflect, ponder. Inna khalaqnakum min turab. Verily, we have created you from sand. Summa min nutfa, then from a drop of sperm. Summa min alaqa, and then from congealed blood. Summa min mudgha, and then from a piece of flesh. Mukhallaqatin wa ghayra mukhallaqa. Sometimes that piece of flesh, it is completely formed, or sometimes it is not completely formed. This example Almighty Allah Ta'ala gives لِنُبَيِّنَ لَكُمْ, so that we may explain to you and bring to you our power and our qudrat, and our qudrat may be made manifested before you. وَنُقِرُّ فِي الْأَرْحَامِ مَا نَشَاءُ إِلَىٰ أَجَلٍ مُسَمَّى, and then we retain in a womb whatever we wish till a specified period of time. ثُمَّ نُخْرِجُكُمْ طِفْلًا, and then when the child comes out from the womb of the mother, we take him out as a baby or a small child. ثُمَّ لِتَبْلُغُوا أَشُدَّكُمْ, and then we nurture him so that he may reach his age of maturity, his youth. وَمِنْكُمْ مَنْ يُتَوَفَّى وَمِنْكُمْ مَنْ يُرَدُّ إِلَىٰ أَرْذَلِ الْعُمُرِ, and among you there are some people who pass away before old age. And among you there are certain people who are returned to the worst part of the age, old age, so that he may know so that he may not know after having knowledge, he may not know anything after having knowledge of something. So Almighty Allah Ta'ala speaks about the different phases of man, and from the time of his birth right until his death. It is mentioned in one hadith, عن عبد الله بن مسعود رضي الله تعالى عنه قال حدثنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وهو الصادق المصدوق. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud رضي الله تعالى عنه says that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam narrated to us, and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is sadiq, he is truthful, he is masduq, and whatever he says, it has been testified to be truth. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, إن خلق أحدكم يجمع في بطن أمه 40 يوما نطفة ثم يكون علقة مثل ذلك ثم يكون مضغة مثل ذلك ثم يبعث الله إليه ملك ب4 كلمات. That one of you stays in a womb of his mother for 40 days in a form of a sperm, then in a form of congealed blood for another 40 days, and then for another 40 days in a piece of flesh. When 120 days pass by, then Almighty Allah Ta'ala sends an angel with 4 things, to write down 4 things. One is the lifespan of the individual, the rizq of the individual, the practice of the individual, and how the person is going to die, whether the person is going to die as a shaqi or whether as a sa'id, whether he's going to be a fortunate person dying in the state of iman, or whether he's going to be an unfortunate person who died in the state of kufr. ثُمَّ يُنْفَخُ فِيهِ الرُّوحِ, and after these 4 things are written, then only soul is blown into the fetus. So Almighty Allah Ta'ala refers to all this in the verse of the Quran Kareem. Old age, Allah refers to an old age here in the ayat of the Quran Kareem. It was a dua of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-bukhl wa a'udhu bika min al-jubn wa a'udhu bika min an arudda ila ardhil al-umr wa a'udhu bika min fitnati ad-dunya wa 'adhab al-qabr. The meaning of the dua is, O Allah, I seek refuge in you from being a miserly person. I seek refuge in you from being a cowardly person. And I seek refuge in you from old age, or the worst part of our old age, where you become completely muhtaj, dependent and desperate on the next person. And I seek refuge in you from the fitna of the dunya, and of Allah, I seek refuge in you from the punishment of the qabr. Further, Almighty Allah Ta'ala then gives us another thought-provoking example of the concept of life after death. And He speaks about a land that is completely dry, a land that does not produce anything, no crops, nothing. Suddenly rain comes down and Almighty Allah Ta'ala makes the ground fertile. So Allah says, وَتَرَى الْأَرْضَ هَامِدَةً فَإِذَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْهَا الْمَاءَ اهْتَزَّتْ وَرَبَتْ وَأَنبَتَتْ مِنْ كُلِّ زَوْجٍ بَهِيجٍ. And you will see the ground dry. And suddenly we will send on the ground water in the form of rain. And that will actually stir up the ground. And it will make the ground swell up with crops, vegetation, and the different bounties of Allah Ta'ala. The ground shows signs of growth. And finally the ground will then grow every beautiful crop that is attractive. This is the qudrat and power of Almighty Allah Ta'ala. So just as the ground was completely barren, not fertile, unable to produce, but after rain comes down, how Almighty Allah Ta'ala change the condition of the ground. Likewise, Almighty Allah Ta'ala says, when we are buried in the ground, and just as Almighty Allah Ta'ala will make the ground produce crops, on the day of resurrection, Allah will take us out from the ground and Almighty Allah Ta'ala will present us before Himself. ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْحَقُّ وَأَنَّهُ يُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى وَأَنَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. Almighty Allah Ta'ala says that this example that we are given about the formation and the different phases of man, and the ground being fertile, and the ground then producing and making the ground fertile, that is to prove that indeed Allah is haqq. Allah is a doer of everything. Allah makes things happen. And it is to show that Almighty Allah Ta'ala will bring to life the dead. After they have died, Allah is the one to bring them back to life. وَأَنَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. And verily, Almighty Allah Ta'ala is qadir. He is capable over each and everything. Nothing is impossible in the sight of Almighty Allah. Allah is qadir mutlaq. He does each and everything, and nothing is impossible for Almighty Allah Ta'ala. Finally, Allah Ta'ala tells to us, وَأَنَّ السَّاعَةَ آتِيَةٌ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهَا. And verily, the day of Qiyamah is soon to come. It will definitely come. There is no doubt in that. وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ يَبْعَثُ مَنْ فِي الْقُبُورِ. And verily, Almighty Allah Ta'ala will raise those people that are in the qabr to stand up and come before Him to give an account for His actions and for His deeds. These are some of the verses 3 till verses 7 of Surah Al-Hajj. And Almighty Allah Ta'ala reminds us of the concept of life after death. When a person goes for Hajj, he also should conscientize himself and remind himself about the ultimate journey towards the Akhirat, whilst he is producing and whilst he is proceeding to the Baytullah in Makkah Mukarramah. That is the house of Allah Ta'ala. He should remind himself that I am going to one day proceed towards Almighty Allah Ta'ala Himself and give an account for my actions and deeds. So when donning the ihram and saying Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik, Labbaik la sharika laka Labbaik, Innal hamda wal ni'mata laka wal mulk la sharika lak, the person should not just think that he's donning the ihram and saying Labbaik and entering in a state of ihram and producing to a Baytullah. Today he is going to the house of Allah, but he should remind himself that one day he is going to go toward Allah Himself and to give an account of his actions and his deeds. May Allah Ta'ala give us tawfiq and hidayat to understand the message of the Quran Kareem, and may Allah Ta'ala grant all of us to perform Hajj and grant all of us Hajj Mabrur and Hajj Maqbool. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.